All right, y'all. We back.
Hey, what's going on?
We back. Back by popular demand. James, what's been going on with you, man?
Nothing much. Same old stuff. Basically came back from Texas, had a good time down there. And then the other day we were playing the football and we lost by a point, but it's cool. But this cat broke his wrist. And I want to give y'all, if y'all are up at the LA Fitness or playing some little recreational ball, make sure you pause if somebody breaks their wrist. Because this fool hella was on the sideline for like a good 11 to 18 minutes with his wrist real slump. And everybody gives me a hard time because I'm one of the older cats on the squad. But me being the older senior dude was the cat that drove him to the hospital room. Everybody else just kept playing as if it was cool. You know what I'm saying?
No, you know how people people will come over and glance and they're like, hey, they're like, oh, that shit's fucked up, dog. You might want to get that checked out. Like,
it was real funny.
Turn their back and go back like, oh, damn.
Yeah, even the officials, they're obviously not great at the officiating, but they should be decent with the safety, right? They didn't call no type of timeout, nothing. So, But it's Manny, though. Even once we went to the emergency room, I don't understand how triage works. Like, there was this dude that came in with his head bleeding. His wife brought him in a wheelchair, and even he sat for like 10 to 15, 20 minutes. Like, what does it take to get...
Yeah, what's the priority? What's the priority?
It.
Yeah, it's like a movie, man. I can't say I've spent much time in there, but I know it is a waiting game.
Right.
Especially when with kids, like you have like a sick kid or they have the flu.
Right.
Oh, you in the back. Because you're like, my kid's sick. And they're just like, okay.
And the lady was hella mean at the table. You just hear so much nonsense all the time. But it's always good to be back with the homie. Always appreciate the invite and all that good stuff.
Hell yeah, man. We're going to try and get these up. So we'll jump right into, I wanted to cover Philadelphia and Toronto. Now that we're like 25 or so games into the season, now we can kind of take like a longer view on some of these things. Because initially right away, you're like, well, is that sustainable? What's going on? Are they, young players? And so this Toronto-Philadelphia game, I enjoyed a lot, man. And it was, Toronto, I think my big takeaway is Kawhi and Siakam can become the best defensive duo in the league. And then you combine that with Ibaka, who's having a resurgence. Kyle Lowry is a nuisance. He's kind of like you as far as a pesky defender. He's going to get up, get real physical, and kind of just be an irritant and just let you know I'm not going anywhere type of dude, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was just impressed with Toronto's defense. And then I'm kind of going big picture here. We'll go into some details. I want to ask you what you think, but I guess ultimately big picture, what I thought was, can Ben Simmons be on the floor late in games? Now, I know that seems kind of like ridiculous. Obviously, he's going to be. But if you look at what Milwaukee has done and where the league is going, how Denver and these teams that are on the upswing doing offensively, it's 4 and 5 out. So basically, you can only have one non-shooter on the floor, maybe. But ideally, you don't have a non-shooter on the floor. And to maximize, I think, Embiid, obviously the Jimmy Butler acquisition, and he's helping. But could you imagine what Embiid would look like with 4 out? If you put 4 shooters around him at the end of a game and you throw it to him on the block and you're like, all right, what y'all going to do? Mm-hmm. And Ben kind of makes that not possible because you have to play him. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I think that's a long-term problem for them. Unless Ben can, I don't know, man. I know they run him on that baseline ghost position, but it just doesn't work. It doesn't work because there isn't one person on an island on the post that can handle Embiid with his footwork, his weight, his floppage.
Yes, God dang, this man's always rolling, diving, this, that, and the other. But yeah, that's an excellent point. When I think about that, his distribution is something that's going to be helpful. But yeah, the lack of shooting is going to be a concern later on. You think teams obviously game plan for that, correct? Like, we don't have to worry about that.
Well, there's levels of disrespect with the gapping. Like, we can talk about a gap. It's like here I go on some, but it's like the gap between a tooth, right? Yeah. Between your front teeth. And you've told me some funny things about women in the gap between the front teeth. Yeah. But you know how there's acceptable levels, and then there's like, oh, You've got to brace that. You need a retainer or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And he's being gapped like buckwheat. Like it's so disrespectful. I'm talking about like they will give him 10 feet of space. Mm-hmm. And I just can't imagine Embiid, like if you took Giannis out of Milwaukee and you put Embiid there, and you put that system in and did the same thing with Embiid on the block, it would be devastating. Not that it's not with Giannis. But that's what came to my mind. And I guess from a Toronto's perspective, it looks like it's all good right now. I think my one question would be, is OG Anunoby the weak link? Now, he's a second-year player, and so there's going to be ups and downs and the sophomore jinx. But I don't know if you can get him out there in crunch time. I'm thinking playoffs already. Obviously, these two teams are going to be in the playoffs, right? But I'm just thinking his shot is like, he has the type of misses like where you're like, ugh. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I want you shooting that. I don't know if you should be shooting that in big games. Mm-hmm. And I know he's a hustle guy and defensively he's switchable, but I think he may be the weak link with that core.
Well, go back to me for what you're saying about Kawhi and Siakam being that dynamic duo of defense. What I noticed about Siakam is he is a perfect physical specimen. I know that sounds strange, but I believe he's 6'9", around like 225, and that's an excellent weight distribution. You've got other cats that are 6'9", 190, 6'9", 185.
Ingram.
You know what I'm saying? And there's just a complete lack of continuity between the body. But if you look at Siakam, he's quick, he's gritty. Yeah, I really like his style of play. So, yeah, and he's locked down in a lot of ways.
His body, now this may be aging me a bit, or some of you younger listeners aren't going to remember this, but his body reminds me kind of a young Lamar Odom's.
All right.
So Odom got heavier, obviously maybe not the most disciplined of athletes.
Yeah.
And but in his earlier days and the way he can push the ball super fast. Now Odom was way more skilled. Would he come out of Rhode Island? But I remember when the Clippers got him, I was mad jealous. I was like, oh, this will look like Magic motherfucking Johnson. Mm-hmm. And, obviously that never came to fruition, but the similar body types, and he's going to continue. I think he's going to be, you would hope he'd be more of a professional and stay lean. But you know what he is right now already? He is, and again, Pascal Siakam, he is the best 50-50 ball guy in the league.
All right.
And what I mean by that is loose balls, right? Pause. Mm-hmm. He's going with his reach, his aggression, his speed, his all his attributes combined with his effort level, he's going to beat everybody to 50-50 balls. Like he is the best at those loose ball scrambles.
And he could jump out.
Super long, can jump, move laterally, sprint, right? And then and that's what I'm watching. And I'm watching him dive all around, get these balls, and then you got the claw out there putting the clamps on you at mid-court, right? He just like puts the hand of God on you, and fools like freeze up, and he's just like, look into he's the fucking Jon Snow of the North. He's a fucking White Walker, dude. But so defensively, and then Ibaka again, I want to credit Ibaka because you don't see a guy I don't know what his age is. I know, the Africans, it's suspect sometimes. Right. He may be like 42.
We just don't know.
But at this point in a guy's career where he's been on his second big contract, for him to kind of like be refreshed and rejuvenated and like have something to prove, I respect that. We'll see if it's sustainable. Mm-hmm. But yeah, those three, Lowry, what is it? Darrell Wright's younger brother, is it Dorian? Forgive me for not knowing his name, but the younger, I just remember Darrell Wright as a Warrior and his unnecessary ass head fakes. Mm-hmm. But great athlete, young, explosive. They just have a lot. They have a lot, man. Again, I don't know about Anunoby. I don't know if they're going to, and I heard someone bring this up, and it's a good point. They've always had depth, right? And so I don't know, in the playoffs, it's never worked out. I think Kawhi is going to give them the confidence where they don't have to make a move. But someone was bringing up, I think it might have been Zach Lowe that was saying, are they going to make a 2-for-1 package and try and get another guy instead of have all this depth of young guys? Because their depth is young, with the exception of Valanciunas and CJ Miles, which are kind of matchup guys. You're not going to see them in every series moving forward. But
what about the homie Van Vliet?
I like Van Vliet. He was very quiet in that game. He didn't, but I like, he's steady. He's a steady dude, and I think you can rely on him. You talk about an Anunoby, and you're like, oh, I don't know about that shit. With Van Vliet, you're like, oh, you can play him. And they were in Nurse. I like Nick Nurse, and he plays Lowry and Van Vliet at the same time. I think he's less rigid than Casey. I think that's going to be key moving forward. I think Casey was a little bit old school. And then something that Nick Nurse said that I really liked was he said something to the effect of, "Yo, man, I was given a Lamborghini, and I'm just trying to drive it right." You know what I'm saying? I'm not even. I was handed this. I'm just trying to drive it right, right? And you know what it made me think about? We've talked about this in the past. Was coaches and people around the league not really liking Brad Stevens and not giving him his credit. And Nick Nurse gets it, right? That's what Brad Stevens didn't say. Because in a way, Brad Stevens was kind of handed a Lambo, maybe a Porsche, right? With all that roster. And he never really was like, well, you know, I've got a great roster in Danny Ainge. Maybe he has behind the scenes. I haven't heard it publicly. And I think he could have instead to give a little more credit to the roster. And maybe that would have went further with him getting credit amongst his peers. But speaking of Wichita State, and we'll go back to Philly, have you seen Landry Shampit? Is it Shampit? Shampit?
Nah.
So he's out of Wichita State. And I like him as a player. I want to state this. There's Wichita State, man. I was born in Wichita, Kansas, man. So I don't, that's the Hoopers be coming out of there.
Yeah, they do.
But this dude looks like he is out of Sherwood Forest, man. Like he looks like someone's squire. Like like he washed his booty in a river. Well, I had to let off on him. He just looks medieval to me, man. He's a funny look. I hate to do this to my light-skinned brethren, but he looked mad medieval to me, man. But I liked the interaction they showed with him and Jimmy Butler on the bench, and they brought up a great point, like the fact that he can get back in Jimmy Butler's face. They wasn't like a heated thing, but he was like, no, da 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 da. You know what I'm saying? And Jimmy was a little bit extra. He was mic'd up, and so he was like, "Hey, JJ," he was like telling Redick, he was like, "We need to get shots and stops," and JJ was like, "Yeah, man, shut the fuck up."
For real.
He was like, I'm 35 years old, motherfucker. I've been in the league for 14 years. You're telling me we need to get stops and shots?
Yeah, right.
But so there was a little bit of that going on. But yeah, I think Philadelphia, that's the question again. I think the Ben, if you could play 4 out with Embiid, that would be amazing. And you have to experiment it with, man. Ben Simmons may just ultimately Brown, their coach, does he have the nerve to do that in a playoff series? He could do it in the regular season and play with it. But again, what would the shooters be? I don't, you've got the Shampit kid, Butler, Redick. You need another big. Wilson Chandler and Muscala both shoot it. You have the roster to do it. You have the lineup to do it. Let's talk a little bit about this Fultz thing.
Yeah, it's just super discouraging. You never want to see an athlete have something like that. It's amazing that people at first thought it was neurological, but it's a combination of both. It's physiological and neurological, because they were stating that he just can't get his arm up or something along those lines, and it's greatly affected a lot of different aspects. It's sad, man. I hope that they can find some treatment, and they're getting second and third and fourth and fifth diagnoses. Once you're going to the fifth and sixth, you already kind of know what the verdict is.
I saw this thing now that Landry Fields, a former Raptor, went to Stanford, and he had a run with the Knicks. He had this flash he was a flash in the pan. He had this crazy little spark his rookie year, had the same condition. And he was never the same, but I guess a lot of pitchers and baseball players have it. I'm not going to pretend to know what it's going to mean. Obviously, no one knows, right? I will say this, though. I like it I feel more encouraged that this has come out rather than he's just away, and you know what I mean? That this is a possibility and that they could fix this now. Because what if this dude comes back looking like D Wade? I know that's extreme, but if you look at him coming out of Washington, and he fit that profile. He's 6'4", 5", and just really strong and bouncy, and just has a variety of ways of scoring. I'm not saying he's going to ever be that, but I'm just saying, what if he came out looking like D Wade light come February?
Sure.
Then Philadelphia all of a sudden, because clearly back to that Toronto-Philadelphia matchup, Toronto is the superior team. Kawhi was just like,
this nigga's hands. I don't even know what it is. It's just the ground moves along with him. It's insanity, bro.
And so I said, if he can come back and be I think there's still that possibility. I want it for him, and I think Philadelphia needs to hold out and wait. I don't think they can sell low. I don't think. Obviously it's dependent on what you get. if they could really get a piece, but I don't think they're going to get much. And I don't see much out of it. I think they've got to hold on through him at least through this season and hope that by playoff time he could be a six-man, a gunner or something in it. Because what if they traded him and then he got like, he came back, he worked it out in the summer, and he was just like,
hella wet.
Woo! Right. But one more thing about Toronto and Kawhi. Early in the season, I did a breakdown. I think it was of that matchup as well. It was obviously before Butler. And I had spoken about Kawhi wasn't yet comfortable jumping off 1 foot. Everything was a 2-footed plant, and I thought it was in his head. You know, we talk about the quad. Right, you saw it. Ask Embiid if he came off 1 foot.
And he jumped from a long way.
Statue to Liberty, that bitch.
Christ. And he looked real confident.
Dude, yak. He came, it was like a hop and a skip. Yak.
Yeah.
And
he did it twice.
Yeah, so he's got to be, I mean, we were talking about LeBron. We'll get into this LeBron thing and this MVP thing. To me, right now, I might take Kawhi. I'm not a numbers guy. You know that. So someone's going to come back and say, well, he only has 3.4 assists.
Right.
And his true shooting percentage, man, he looking like an MVP. Yeah. He looking like an MVP.
Mm-hmm. What do you think DeRozan feels about? You know, you look
he's
back
probably
to old
depressed.
Relationships.
He's
and you're
probably
in San Antonio.
depressed.
I'm from Texas, as y'all know, and San Antonio's whack. Anybody from San Antonio, I apologize, but all y'all have is the Riverwalk and the Alamo. And just for history's sake, stop celebrating the Alamo. We lost. We lost. We did. But either way, I'm just saying, I wonder how, on a psychological level, how DeRozan may be feeling about this, you know.
I think he's depressed. I mean, here I am making a joke. Don't joke about the depression.
Oh, God.
But you know what I'm saying? To me, I don't know, man. I have mixed. I guess this is the old school tough guy in me. But like when him and Love came out and were like, yes, I've battled. I was just like, just wait till your career's over. Okay. Don't say it in the prime of your career because me as an opponent, I'm gonna be like, you weak little. Yeah. I'm gonna be like, yeah, you sad right now, boy? I'm about to bust you. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the reality of it is there are guys that are gonna do that between the lines. I'm not saying like get out of bounds with it, but like they're gonna use that. Mm-hmm. Like, oh yeah, you know his confidence can waver. Sure. Because we've seen it with Love. Mm-hmm. You know, we've seen Love where he just gets down on himself and he's not the same player. So I don't know about that. But DeMar, the Spurs, I had tweeted out like, you know shit's serious when Pop shaves his beard. Right? He trying to scare everybody. That motherfucker's like, look at me. Look at me. We must switch them. Oh man. All right, enough of the East and the new Jon Snow of the East, Kawhi Leonard, the king of the North. Let's talk a little bit, and this is what I really wanted to get your perspective on. And we back after the commercial break. Shout out my sponsors. Oh no, I don't got no sponsors right now, but you can cop some of this Athletic Alchemy gear that I'm trying out. I'm trying to, custom stuff. You don't got to go get it, but take a look at it. You might want some shit for Christmas. Shout out Boom Called It. It's an app where it's low key, kind of like gambling, but there's no risk involved, and they're giving away prize money. And it's something to mess around with when you have pick'em games. A couple weeks ago, during that Warriors streak where they were losing, I kept betting against him. I'm not even going to lie. I was betting against him against Portland and then again against Sacramento. Shout out my guy. You know who you are. And of course, what did they do? Durant dropped 50 and was like, nah, we ain't losing this shit. So be careful on betting and choosing your team. That's a rule that I try not to do, but I end up doing. But yeah, Boom Called It. You can win a little bit of Christmas cash. Let's get into this Kobe stuff. I got a lot of my subscribers and patrons were like, yo, Kobe, you hear him throwing shade, talking that shit. And to me, I really enjoyed it because, one, I'm not one of those, so it doesn't really bother me. And it is what it is. Anytime something is super successful and great like this,
oh, come on.
That's what it's going to be. So I don't really, even if, let's say you're a Warriors fan that started to become a fan now, it's hard not to be. If you're in the Northern California region or you picked it up, like it's that great. So there's no shame in that. But the fact that Kobe had to take the time out and that's what was on his mind, let me know this is really a dynasty.
Ooh, okay.
You feel me?
Uh-huh.
But
feathers get a little bit ruffled. once you
yeah,
see
like why you
everybody
worried
big
about
enough. Yeah,
why you
right?
worried
You're
about
Kobe,
what's in
but-
my pockets, nigga?
You're right. Big bank take little bank, right?
But this Lakers stuff is getting interesting, and this is what I really look to your expertise upon is maybe the psychological fact of okay, so basically here's what it is. Those of you, I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. Kevin Durant, Tyson Chandler, Kyle Lowry, Rudy Gay, Rick Bucher went around and interviewed these guys and asked them about playing with LeBron. And now that's the big headline this week, right? That superstars don't want to play with LeBron. What I guess just your big picture take on this.
Well, we talked about career development a long time ago, and there's this concept of stagnation, and it's like step 5 out of 8 or something like that. But when you look at someone that's 35 plus, such as Tyson Chandler, you may want to go and draft in someone else's success or reflective glory because it's an easier ticket to where you want to go. But if you're a young, up-and-coming, upstart entrepreneur, whatever it may be, even think about business people who leave a corporation to go off and branch off themselves. So it just depends. If you're young and up and coming and you want your own brand, as most basketball players do, you might not want to co-sign to the dude that every time he comes to the business meeting, all the cameras are on him. You might score 42, LeBron might score 15, but he might get more tick than you just for whatever reason. And at some level, that might gnaw at you. So if you're 35 plus and you're on the way out of the league, yeah, go link up with LeBron. Even if you think about the Bosh and D Wade, they were already set. They were made men at that time. It was a made men's table. You know what I'm saying? Everybody can sit, everybody can chill. But if you're still trying to make a name for yourself, or you're just that type of dude that wants the notoriety, the winning may not be as savory because his footprint or handprint or DNA is always going to be wrapped up all up in it. He is very controlling. He does want things to go his way, can be a coach killer, difficult to work with. So I don't know. Me personally, football is just so much different. It doesn't work that way. It's just different. But I can see why the Corvers, Love had to completely change his game, right? And it was somewhat detrimental. This cat used to score a whole bunch of points. So I'm not sure. I don't think Durant was out of line by any means, but I did see him interject his whole blog boy thing back into it. He's like, yeah, y'all just hang on every word. Yeah. So he did kind of make personalized this real
He's
quick.
a little aggressive. He's a little aggressive with that. And look, obviously, I'm a blog boy. So, take it for what it's worth. But Durant, we're talking about Nick Nurse and him. Durant could stand to be a little more humble about that type of shit because it's like, look, no doubt the league is amazing. You're an amazing talent, first off. You're never going to be treated as a normal dude and play basketball.
Yeah.
You are the original unicorn. You are trying to put yourself on the Mount Rushmore of basketball, right? So you're not going to be treated like a normal dude. But my point is us blog boys are part of why the NBA is exploding because of the coverage. Now, don't get me wrong. The root, the core, the heart of it is basketball on the court. You're right, KD. But this coverage, us talking about this, everything, all the 24-hour news cycle of coverage is what's helping you get that $220 max deal, right? The ad revenue and shit.
Your shoes,
just pay a little mind to it. Like you don't have to just completely dismiss it and take shots at every time. But anyway, I think that one, obviously, this isn't some groundbreaking take, but I think you can check LA off KD's list. If we're going to talk about, I've heard someone with the conspiracy theory, he's trying to get us off the scent of his trail of going there. But it's like, okay, I don't know about that. I couldn't see him joining LeBron
seems
anyway.
more direct than that.
Yeah, and I think that why would you supposedly leave the shadow of Steph to be under the shadow of LeBron? Like, and you can argue that, but it just doesn't make sense. So I'm not saying KD ain't leaving. I just definitely don't think it's going to be LA. But the thing with LeBron is he treats everybody like they're his son.
Yeah.
That I think is that, he's like, when you put your hand on the back of a nigga's neck.
Yeah.
Like, or you palm their heads and shit like that. And you can look even at, so Drake is, you could argue, I don't know, he's got to be top 5 most powerful people in entertainment.
All right.
Right? It's something along those lines. He's
with that
very
7
famous.
lines of degrees of separation, he knows somebody who knows somebody. Yeah, he's right up there.
He's half Jewish. Like, come on, man. And so he's a very powerful, popular dude. He crosses like, you know, all these
Racial
things. Right. Yeah.
barriers.
Well, just like your grandma knows who Drake is, right? You know what I'm saying? And in that shop thing with Drake, you know, he was even treating Drake like he was like, so, and what I tell you. And Drake was like, you told me to just be me, you know. Man. When Pusha when you know what I'm saying? And he was like, that's what I told you, right? I told you, Drizzy. You got to be a man. Like, and so I don't blame LeBron for this because I think his environment has formed this. He has, I said this a couple weeks ago, he has lived up to the hype more than any player ever, right? So I want to give him that credit. But along that way of being the chosen one and being the king, he's always been put on that pedestal and he's been the anointed one. And so therefore, that's why he treats everybody that way. Like, you know what I mean? It's slowly evolved to that. Sure. But I think that there's an aspect of that beyond the X's and O's and the ball dominance, right? I think there's an aspect of just the way he handles the room where it's kind of like, he's not going to say it. He's not going to say it, but yeah, you kind of got to kiss the ring.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. And definitely everybody tried to vilify people for leaving the Cavs, but they saw it firsthand behind the guard, you know, what it is like. He's probably a cool dude, this and that, but I could see him maybe changing persona where he might be relaxed, laid back, and then suddenly have to get into handshaking mode and smiles and stuff. And that gets annoying after a while. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. He's probably a decent dude, but it also brings me to everybody's got their kryptonite. And, you know, don't take it the wrong way, but his situation with his mother. And I wonder how it is with his wife. I'm sure they're happily married, but I'm sure she probably punks that fool. I've seen her. She's kind of a hood chick from back in the day. I bet you at LeBron's house, his wife wears the pants. I'm just saying, I have nothing to back that. It's just, just kind of a funny thing. There's always somebody who can put you into your rightful place. And hopefully he has a wife and some family that can keep his ego under wraps. You know, you need that on a certain level. So it's just kind of crazy, man. He does take up all the oxygen in the room as he should, but you got to leave room and space. We talked about a long time ago, musicians. Some people didn't like playing with certain people because they played all the notes. There's no more notes to play. Why have anybody else in the band? Why don't we just listen to you?
There's diminishing returns on the court for sure. We talked about how impressive Kawhi is looking now, right? And you never saw the one thing that, and not to get back on this, but Kawhi seems so liberated playing under Nick Nurse and being allowed to kind of just show all that he has. He might just fuck around and stay. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like he's finally getting a taste of being outside of the San Antonio system. It may be so appealing initially that he may just stay up there. Yeah. But watching that, you're like, yeah, I could see why he don't want to play with LeBron. Because like, I think there was a question before the season started, like, you know, people have said, oh, it's San Antonio system. What's Kawhi look like out of that? Well, he's answered that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Paul George is an interesting one, and I was shocked when he chose Russ because Paul George isn't really that ball dominant. I think he would have kind of fit with LeBron, but again, you go back to the sunning. Russ really, Russ is just a different beast, and I brought this up a few weeks ago, is if you watch the way, when he was out, he was in some crazy ass outfit on the sidelines, but he had his arm around Paul George. He was telling him this. He was dapping up everybody. And it wasn't what he was doing. It was the responses that it was getting. Mm-hmm. And it was a different type of respect than when LeBron does that shit. When LeBron does it, it doesn't go over as well. And obviously there's so many variables depending on who the player is. Mm-hmm. But like for whatever reason, what we don't know, because you know I'm a huge Russ critic. Mm-hmm. But if you watch at how his teammates respond and the people around the team respond to his stuff, mm-hmm. it clearly behind the scenes, he's a real one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. Kind of makes me think about, check out the Emperor's new clothes, that ancient story. And LeBron kind of seems like the Emperor, to where he could walk around with no clothes and everybody would say that he had some on. It would take some little kid to say, dude, why is this guy walking around looking crazy?
Why is your ding dong out, LeBron?
You know, he's like, nah, my shit's. So check out the Emperor's old clothes. I think maybe Durant got a little bit because he was the kid that said, nah, F all that. You know what I'm saying? This cat, he's decent, but he's not all that, you know? So it's just kind of interesting being the whistleblower or whatever it might be.
Yeah, we'll see. We're gonna have to, not on this one, but we're gonna have to get in, because I haven't really got your take on the whole Durant, Draymond, and his future. But I think that's for another episode. The one thing that I want to leave with this LeBron and Laker thing is we talk about him sunning and being, you know, sucking the oxygen out of the room. Today, the rumor is Carmelo Anthony is going to be a Laker and LeBron wants him. Now, I think they have to wait till the 15th, some sort of contract thing with Houston. But I was like, oh boy.
I mean, wants him to do what? Like get the jerseys in the locker room or clean up or something?
Be a squire.
Yeah, right. Be his errand boy.
Squire Melo. But like you talk about, he's like, I don't know, like behind the scenes, he's like, Melo has been humbled. Let him grovel at my feet.
Right.
I will let him ISO while I'm on the bench.
Right.
But I've got my popcorn ready for that shit.
Yeah, man.
I've got my popcorn ready for that shit. And I understand Ingram went out with an ankle injury. Rondo's got a hand injury. The problem that I think that brings is, does that isolate LeBron? Tyson Chandler's a different beast. But like, does that all of a sudden kind of isolate him from the young players because he's so close to Melo? And then they're going to see he's going to be harsh at Kuzma or harsh at Hart, and then he ain't going to say shit to Melo. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that's the risk they run. Mm-hmm. Because right now, he's able to treat all of them the same. But I don't know if he can treat Melo like them. Mm-hmm. You feel me? Mm-hmm. And so I just can't wait. I hope it happens.
From a chemistry standpoint, that's an interesting one.
I hope he debuts Christmas Day against the Warriors. And you talk about ISO Melo, it's become the reverse. Now teams just ISO against Melo, mm-hmm. right? And he out there looking like he at Skateland. Right. And so, yeah, man, that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. You got
So the rumor is Melo coming out that way. Yeah. Haven't they learned? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's wild to me. It's wild to me. But that, like I said, that'll add to the drama of this NBA season, man. But yeah, man, I think it was good to have you back on this, man. I hope we can try and do this every now and then. The logistics, the things, obviously busy man. Mm-hmm. But if we can do this, obviously I'll see this as a new format here, side by side. Hopefully it'll make the process smoother and quicker.
Yeah, man. Go Cowboys. Kobe was talking about the fair weather fans or whatever, but we're on the upswing. Okay. You know what I'm saying? I still don't believe in Dak. I don't.
He just doesn't have the length.
He doesn't compete. He doesn't have the length to compete. He's not firm in the way we need him to be. But I will say, man, I have to just go on it real quick. I know it's basketball, but our two linebackers are excellent. That Cat Van Der Esch and Smith, that duo right there. You were talking about Siakam and then being a dynamic duo. Mm-hmm. Our linebacking crew is phenomenal, and they're really keeping us in it. Shout out to Marinelli, looking like Popeye. He looks just like the Sailor Man, but his defense is super excellent. So I'm looking for Cowboys. We're probably not going to win, but I'm just glad that we're on this upswing. We beat the Saints, but we've always beat the Saints, to be quite honest, just historically. But anyways, shout out to Van Der Esch and Jalen Smith. Keep doing what y'all do. It's excellent to watch. Keep it up.
Okay. And on that football tip, remember one of our first podcasts, we talked about the Reuben Foster scenario.
Oh yeah, you're a 49.
The situation. Yeah. I gotta integrate it. It's still a rivalry, even though it ain't. But Reuben Foster, remember the Niners didn't release him after the alleged beating of his girlfriend, and then all of a sudden the DA dropped the charges. She said it didn't happen, and I got on this very pod and I was like, yo, that is the biggest payoff job, the most obvious payoff job, I should say, I've ever seen. I was like, that is insane. Like, I can't believe it. But as a Niner fan, okay, if that's what it's going to be, fine. And then sure enough, and I'm sure now you guys know the news and the headlines, it's happened again. They waive him. And then Washington picks him right back up, man. So the bring it back to the Colin Kaepernick thing and the blackballing and the shade of the NFL. And honestly, I've just lost a lot. One, I've lost a lot of being a Niner fan. Obviously, I'm not going to watch that much football this season. Mm-hmm. But two, it really just disgusts me, the behind the scenes and the good old boy network that's still running along in the NFL.
It's ugly, man. It really is. It really is. So just on what the homie's saying, stop eating Cheez-Its. They've got this new ad that says real cheese matters. So I think that they've kind of bastardized a much more positive message. So anyways, if y'all like Cheez-Its, stop messing with them, because I understand real cheese matters, but
the commercial
matters.
The
too.
Commercial's like, baby, real cheese matters. Yeah, like when they have a when you and your homies in your ride and you need some real cheese.
Yeah, this is terrible.
With like some boom, boom, boom.
Yes, I'm telling you, bro. So.
Okay, man. All right, man. Well, let's wrap this thing up, man. That NBA life, we back. Out.